Welcome to this episode of PI Perspectives. Today, Matt sits down with Jeff Evans and Niki McKinnell from Delvepoint. They discuss database research, and Jeff provides some great pro tips when doing research. They also talk about Delvepoint's new utility search, their vehicle sighting search, and Watchdog product. This episode is brought to you by Delvepoint. Delvepoint was founded by investigators with more than 70 years of combined service in the industry. Delvepoint's billions of records from all three credit bureaus allows you to develop a complete profile of your subject and helps you get the information you need. Act now with the code PI2020 and get up to 100 free searches. The code is available for new or returning customers. Visit delvepoint.com/apply for more details. Now let's check in with today's guests and see what they have to offer this week. Here's your host, private investigator, Matt Spare.
And welcome everybody to the next episode of PI Perspectives. I'm your host, Matt Spare, and I am joined here today with some folks from Delvepoint. I'm here with Jeff Evans and Niki McKinnell. So welcome, Jeff and Niki.
Hi, Matt. Thank you for having us on the show.
Matt.
Jeff, you are the Delvepoint Director of Sales and Customer Success. You've been working with Delvepoint for almost a decade, and you have your degree in Business Administration and Management from the University of Florida, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And Niki, you are the Delvepoint Marketing Manager, and you've got extensive experience in dealing with government affairs, public relations, and corporate marketing, and you're also a degree holder in public relations from the University of Florida too, right?
Go Gators.
Okay, great. So, Niki, you and I actually met, I think it was at Osmosis, right, in Orlando?
Yes.
Right. So
that was a great conference. That
was. Yeah, Cynthia did a great job there. So that laid the foundation for you and I starting to chat, and me really understanding and discovering your product and taking a deeper look into it. And, I've had my team using your resources, and we've done some video webinars, which have been really great. And I've been very happy with the results and things that we're doing. So Niki and I were chatting. We said, hey, let's do an episode and come in and talk about like the art of searching and some ways that investigators maybe aren't getting the most out of their searching. And maybe might be spending too much money, where if they were really taking a different approach to doing their searches, they can have better success. And she said, oh, it's funny, Jeff is writing an article about that. So I was like, great, let's get him online and let's chat. So this is why we're here today. So Jeff, why don't you tell me a little bit about your experience in working at Delvepoint and what's new and fresh and going on with Delvepoint?
Okay. Yeah, as you alluded to, I've been working for Delvepoint for going on 10 years. Started here actually vetting applications. So actually as technically an end user myself. Over the 10 years, databases have evolved very much so in terms of the breadth of data, but also in the way that they're utilized. A lot of the old school investigators still lean on their tendencies from when they started, and that's what led me to start writing the article, The Art of Searching, because with how much data is out there, it really, the way that you search is transformed into a less is more type scenario where, filling out the entire search criteria field actually hurts you in a lot of sense. Most commonly, if you have an SSN, a social security number, your best bet is just to run the social. If you put their full name, address, city, state, relatives, phone numbers, it might actually end up excluding some data that doesn't match your search criteria point. So, the biggest emphasis I would make for anyone out there is, again, less is more. If you have an SSN, that's all you need. If you don't have it, name and date of birth. If you don't have any PII, name and city, state. The address, the street address itself is where the most public record errors and variations come into play. It could be the word street fully spelled out or abbreviated. It could be, Center Road abbreviated CTR. It could be Oklahoma City OKC. It could be suite, apartment, unit number. There's so many different sources that they report the addresses and so many different variations that, again, you really want to avoid any of those nuances.
Yeah, it's interesting because over the years, right, the AI that actually is used to get this information has gotten better too. So it used to be you had to be like spot on, or you had to try all these different Boolean searches or different ways to be creative to do your research, and the technology is actually getting better. But definitely being able to wildcard, in my own experience in doing the database, I agree with you. Less is more. Definitely you want to give enough information, but not too much where you're going to cut down on the results that you're going to get. I'm always of the inkling, like I want to see everything and be able to exclude on my own, than trusting AI and whether or not it's going to remove something that or not provide something. And then, you've got the other quote unquote wild card out there of the data entry person, right? The person who's actually put that information into the system. You're trusting that they're doing that correctly, and that doesn't always happen.
Yeah. And the one caveat I would make there when using any database is employment searches, whether it's people at work or employer searches. That data, that there's a huge resource pool of employment data out there that does not actually include any PII. So it's not actually linked back to that person's record. Case in point, if you were to go run a people at work search on my social, you actually get no hits. But if you were to run Jeff Evans, Tallahassee, Florida, you get every single position that I've held at Delvepoint. And the reason behind that is if you think about where you've listed your employment history, LinkedIn, Facebook, your email signatures that have circulated throughout marketing companies and you signed up for mailing lists, none of that includes your actual address, your actual date of birth, or your social. So even though that data is being aggregated, there's no way to say that Jeff Evans at Delvepoint is this Jeff Evans that lives at this address. So it's not included when you were to run my comprehensive report, but you can get to that data still. That's the one caveat that I found in any database, that when you're looking for employment data, the searching is actually in the reverse fashion of how you would normally run it.
Right. So for the average investigator out there that isn't tech savvy, what does PII mean? Can you break that down for me?
I apologize. It's personally identifiable information. So that's protected data such as a date of birth, driver's license number, or social security number. Okay,
great. That article that you had written, it's in the digital version of the most recent PI magazine. So if you folks haven't checked it out, check out the digital copy. It's in there. It's a great article. Definitely some good pro tips in there. Why don't you give me some of the other pro tips that you have listed in there?
It focuses on also one of our newer license plate recognition searches called Vehicle Sightings. What this is basically we've got an entire crew of tow trucks out there with cameras that are constantly taking pictures in real time. And so what it does is it allows you to locate the vehicle based on either their VIN, tag, or address, and just to plot out their location history. The bonus to this search that most people don't realize is that this is data. These are locations that you're not going to find in your typical database. If your skipper, your target, hasn't updated his credit cards, his bank account, his driver's license, he's still out there driving around in his car. You're still going to get an up-to-date address on your subject for your investigation through the LPR database that you wouldn't through your normal facets.
We hear all the time that people have used every other search and every other avenue to find someone they haven't been able to, and then they run the LPR search, and you may be able to find the car at the house across the street from where you were looking. It's a really good way to zero in on that person when everything else has failed, or a good starting place as well.
Yeah, I think that would be a game changer for employment searches, right? If you're trying to find out where somebody's working, as long as it's not some big office park, right? If they're pulling into the corporate parking lot of a particular workplace, I mean, that's a good lead, strong lead for you to now go and try and figure out if the person actually works there, right?
Yeah, that is one of the pieces of feedback we get all the time. Relatives, girlfriend, boyfriend, you're parked there overnight. It covers a large gap in where the typical data wouldn't actually reach someone.
And there are two ways you can get information on this search. One is, like Jeff was saying, with the address. So you put in the address, you can find out what cars have been there. But then also, if you're looking for that specific car, putting in the VIN and the license plate number will then give you all the places that car has been spotted, not just at that address.
Yeah, it's definitely a good way to connect the dots. I never used that search engine before, and as a personal injury investigator, I kind of had this predetermined idea that I don't need that. It's not part of my scope. But then I actually had a couple of situations where I said, you know what, let me give it a shot. Let me try it. And it worked out. I had a case in New York City where a work vehicle, the mirror of the vehicle had struck a pedestrian. And initially they thought the pedestrian was fine, and they didn't get a police report. They just exchanged information, but they didn't exchange insurance information. The guy just said, here's my telephone number. call me if you need anything, right? Well, the pedestrian was feeling pain in his arm and said, you know what, let me go get this checked out. And he goes, checks out, and turns out he fractured his elbow and was going to need surgery. So it's like, okay, no, now it's not a bump and bruises. I've got a telephone number, but I got a guy who's not cooperating. Now, my client was smart enough to write down the license plate as well, right? So we had the license plate, I had a telephone number, and now I needed to find out where this vehicle not only was being parked at a residence, but who the employer was, because that was the insurer of the vehicle. And it was an out of state, wasn't New York, so it's not like I could run that plate right through New York DMV. So I was like, okay, well, let me give it a shot and see what I can find. And we were able to locate the vehicle using the technology, and I knew exactly the patterns of where it typically was, and we were able to get great results of it. So that was a situation on a personal injury case where it actually came in handy. It was very, very neat.
You actually touched on a great point there also, Matt, is that the vehicle sightings is not pulling from DMV data. So whereas most PIs, like you said, in New York are not used to being able to run tags because of New York privacy laws, you can run a tag in all 50 states. The location is not restricted in any state at this point. So you can run a tag that you usually wouldn't to find out the location of that vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, and taking that one step further. So in New York, there is a way to get the registration and insurance information. You just have to be registered with the Department of Motor Vehicles. For now, anyways. They may change it. Who knows? There's some craziness going up in Vermont. You know, it could be this and could drip down to New York. Which is why we need NCISS and stuff and associations like that to advocate for us. But the example that you were giving, so I had another case where I had a tractor trailer, and I had the plates, but I didn't know what state it was in. You know, I didn't have all that good information, and running it through your system and finding out in all the country, that plate sequence, did it show up anywhere? And I had I think 3 or 4 solid leads to go on. And I think the registration ended up matching up with the name on the side of the trucking company, because we had signage on the truck, but no real definitive answer. And we were able to connect the dots on that way too. So that was another example of how it worked out well.
Nice. Glad to hear it.
Yes. I'm a believer in the LPR. You've sold me on it. Initially I said no go, but you changed my mind, and I think that's neat. And I got to say, just the platform of surfing around, the way you guys have your dashboard is very comfortable. You know, it's very easy to navigate around. And I thought one of the other cool things too is you guys are integrated with Crosstracks, right? You're kind of working together, I think, right?
Correct. We basically integrated our platform inside the Crosstrack case management system so that you don't actually have to leave their system to run your searches. And you're able to export sections from the reports or searches directly into your cases, which from the feedback we've got from clients is a huge game changer in terms of time management and resource management.
Yeah, that's really great. So, okay, we're going to jump out real quick and just take a quick break. When we come back in, I'd like to talk about some more tips and maybe some more ways that investigators maybe are overspending in doing their investigations, and maybe you can give some tips on how to really focus in and really get the information that you need to get. So we're going to jump out real quick, and we'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by the Society of Professional Investigators. If you're in New York City on February 20th, join them at Ferlini's in Little Italy. Registration is still open. Check the show notes for details. The speaker will be Paul Callan. Paul will speak about the hot topic of bail and criminal justice reform in New York State. You don't want to miss this meeting. Back to the show.
Okay, welcome back to PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spare, your host. I am here with Jeff Evans and Niki McKinnell from Delvepoint. Welcome back, guys.
Hi, thank you.
Okay, so today we are talking about database research and the art of searching, which is an online article that Jeff had written for PI Magazine. It's available in their digital version. Folks should go check out that magazine. So why don't you give me a couple more tips, some things that investigators may not realize they're doing wrong, or things that are available that they don't know is available?
All right. Well, one of the newer searches that's hit the market on a couple of databases is a utility-only search, which means that it's stripped out all the other sources that we pull from, and it's looking strictly at utility data. And by utility, it's not by its normal definition, and we're not just talking gas, power, and water. I mean, it's talking internet, cell phone, landline. There's a plethora of different unique services, but what we're looking for here is a connect date. And this is for people that move frequently or have been hard to find. When you think of anyone in this day and age, the very first thing when you relocate, what do? You turn on power and you turn on internet. So it really helps you strip out all of the old stale data and just look at what's current and what's been verified, connected at what date. And we found a lot of PIs are really liking that search in terms of finding their skips that have been out either on the run or just kind of living under the radar for a while. It's really gotten a lot of traction.
And you can compare it against property data so that then you can really zero in on where they are if they have multiple properties.
Right. It's almost like, you're getting a bevy of different information from different resources. And if all signs are pointing to a particular location, there's a pretty good chance that that's going to be a good location, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we got the utilities there. Just talking from my own personal experience of running searches, there was a case I worked on, probably about 6 or 7 years ago. And it involved a gentleman who had slipped and fell down the stairs and had a head injury, and he got up, stumbled, walked out of the subway, and ended up sitting down on a park bench and dying, right? And it's a terrible, horrible story. We had a eyewitness, somebody who was in the subway system with the police department who had arrested him for disorderly conduct, and they were in the process of bringing him to the station to print him and let him go. So we knew that there was this arrest that was going on. I just didn't have any of the information. Like we had gotten info from the city, but everything was redacted. And my client said, we're trying to find this witness. They redacted his name other than his name is Chris and he lives in apartment F, right? Or Chris W. I had like the first initial of the last name, right? So I took the information, I went through and I combed through all the information that was provided. And when they were redacting, they actually did not redact one part that had his aunt's name. And it didn't have an address, but I knew that she lived in Brooklyn. I knew she lived around the area of where that subway was because he had said he was going to work. He had just left his house. So I was able to put the puzzle together, run a search on the aunt, and then cross-reference it with a whole bunch of Chris W's in apartment 3 that I had over there. And, I was able to actually find the guy. And it was crazy because it was like the incident had happened 5 years earlier. And he remembered seeing this man stumble down the stairs and appearing to be injured. And the police were more interested in getting this guy to central booking than they were to actually helping somebody who was injured. They pretty much told the guy hey, somebody will be back for you. And they just never called it in and nobody came back. So it was a really good example of trying to be really creative and trying different wildcard searches to connect the dots.
Wow, that's a great story.
Yeah. It was one of these, I can't believe this happened. It never happens,
Right.
But it was a good, and my client couldn't believe it. And the paralegal, she was like, I don't believe it. I spent 3 months trying to find this person. How did you do it in a day? I'm like, well, I can't give you my trade secrets. But it's the power of the database, power of using and knowing how to use it. Right. So, anybody can type a name and an address and, put in all that pedigree information and you'll get results back. But what do you do when you're not getting results back? How do you approach that? So, Jeff, why don't you give me some tips if an investigator is kind of hitting a wall, maybe something that's a different way, a little more creative to go about and try and get what they need to get.
Well, do you have a particular example, a particular use case?
Yeah, let's just say they're trying to locate a witness, and the guy's name is Roberto Hernandez, and he lives in Brooklyn, New York, and that's all they have.
Outside of running your normal searches, I would just need a little bit more info as to what you're trying. You're just trying to find a new address for the individual. Yeah,
let's say they're just trying to locate, maybe find a telephone number. Maybe they do have a relative, or so let's give it a better example. Let's say maybe it's a lost, it's an unknown heir, like you're trying to build a family tree. So you've got some information, but you don't have all the information, and you're kind of hitting stumbling blocks here. How would you recommend going forward and doing additional research?
Well, you're going to obviously always start with your original search, an advanced person search, and if you come back with the results and you're saying, okay, address is no good, phone number is no good, where do I go from here? A lot of people do jump to the next of kin. If I can't find him, maybe I can find his parents or his children. We do have a relationship report that will give you up to 3 degrees of relatives, so you can actually see the degree of separation to know that they're first degree and start digging in that way. One of the most common things I hear when people are saying, I can't find my guy, they don't realize that when you run a person search, it doesn't include any criminal information. And more often than not, the people that are being investigated are usually kind of more of a habitual offender type situation. And most people don't think to run an incarceration search to see if they're actually in prison or in jail right now, which would explain why there are no new phone numbers and no address.
I've actually had that happen on a couple of cases, right? Nobody knew where to find the person. It turns out, like, let me do the inmate lookup and see if I can find something. And sure enough, there they are, locked up and, expected release date, so-and-so. And how to send a letter and get information out to them. I know there was actually, I was dealing with a case that was related to 9/11. So in New York, there's this 9/11 Zadraga fund where, if you are suffering from illnesses, you're entitled to compensation, but you got to be able to prove that you were actually there, that you were involved in some way, either with the cleanup or you were there the day that it happened. And this is a long time ago now. So like getting affidavits and tracking people down is difficult, but it's something that's required, right? You can't just say you were there if you don't have a way to prove it. So there was a case I was working on it, and the guy who could verify, was really the only guy who could verify. This poor gentleman was actually part of the cleanup crew, was incarcerated in federal prison. So I had to be very creative on trying to track him down and figure it out. And we were able to do it. And I was able to reach out and make contact. And I'd sent some letters, and that wasn't working. And I ended up finding the guy's, just through doing my own research, found out who his attorney was when he was initially sentenced to go to jail. And I reached out to his attorney, and we were able to facilitate and get it done. So it was just a very interesting way of doing that initial research. And, if I didn't use a search engine, something that is like your product there, I wouldn't have been able to connect the dots the way I was able to do it.
Absolutely. Once you actually find them in jail, they're really easy to track down, though, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. Just, and you know what's funny? They'll even come out and talk to you. So I've had a couple of these situations where it's been like a cold interview, right? Oh, Matt's here to see you. Who's Matt? I don't know, but I want to go out and talk to him. And it's amazing. It's like somebody wants some company. They just want to shoot the breeze. And of course, they're always going to talk to you, right? They want to get their story out there and just shoot the breeze. And I've been to some jails a little more often than I would like to, but every now and then you got to do it.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about the notification alerts with your system. What is that about, and how does that work?
That's the Watchdog product. And what it does is it lets you actually put a subject on watch, and we will notify you in real time via text message or email or both if your subject or target is incarcerated, or booked rather. It's heavily utilized in the bail industry for people that obviously skip out on bail. They want to know if they get booked again. But it's becoming more and more utilized in the investigative space in both corporate security and due diligence. A lot of PIs like the ability to offer their clients the ability to put their employees on watch. And listen, I'll tell you, if one of your guys slips up and gets arrested, it's actually very inexpensive. It's non-regulated data, but it's not available to the general public. So it's really kind of a one-off search that PIs really like to utilize and keep in their search catalog that they can offer to their clients. That's half of the Watchdog product. The other half is a search monitoring. So if you've got one of the situations that you alluded to before, where the data that's in the database just isn't good, you're waiting for this guy to pop back up somewhere, we can do that for you. You run Jeff Evans, you put him on watch either daily, weekly, or monthly, and we'll shoot you an email once we see a new address, so that you don't have to manually go in there and rerun him every day, week, month. It's a time saver.
Okay, so it's not like a social media search where if they're posting something you're getting, it's more along the lines if they have a new address, a new utility, an arrest record comes up, something like that, correct?
Correct.
Okay, well, there's definitely benefit to that. I can see that too. And it's funny, like I do business sometimes with companies that lend money out on their cases. Like I can see where that product would be really, really good, right? Having some sort of watchdog, because this lending company now has a vested interest in keeping track of this person who owes them money on their cases. Unfortunately, sometimes the attorneys that are representing those people don't notify the lending company that the case is settled and it's paid out. So, being able to utilize that Watchdog, I think, would be a really cool way to use that software.
100%.
So are there any other tips or anything else that you could interject here for the regular investigator who's doing their day-to-day searches and maybe frustrated that they're not getting the results they're looking for, or maybe they're spending a little more money than they really need to?
Well, on the money aspect, there's one quick way to save a buck, which is a direct-to-report. Not all databases offer this, but it is available on a couple of them, at least I know of, where if your ultimate goal is to run a report, find a report, contact card report, comprehensive report, a lot of databases will force you to run a search first, which incurs a cost. And then once you run the search to find your subject, you can then run the report on them, and there's another cost. Well, in our database, you actually can run the report directly if you have their social. You can skip that initial search to save yourself a couple of bucks each time. The other question that you posed was if they've run into a dead end. I tell this to clients all the time. Shoot us an email, give us a call, let us help you. We're in the system 24/7, and it's still great that every single day we'll get a client that calls in and has a scenario or a corner case that we haven't run into, and we like to help our clients in those instances. If you're happy, we're happy.
Yeah, and I got to say, my experience so far in dealing with you guys, even the webinars, the teaching that you're doing, the feedback I'm getting from my staff is that they really like it. They really enjoy it. And even if it isn't something necessarily like what I would offer through my service, like the Watchdog, I don't know if that translates into a personal injury case, for a plaintiff, a client, although I can tell you that I did have a situation in a meeting today where something came up where something like that may work. In this case was a construction worker had gone to Cuba, and he was there for a bit, right? He relocated to Cuba for a couple months. And while he was in Cuba, he took a video of him dancing, or somebody took a video of him dancing and doing things he wasn't supposed to be doing because he was injured. And he uploaded it to YouTube, or somebody uploaded it to YouTube. And the attorney found out about it, and they were like, hey, you're killing your case here. They had a $12 million offer on this guy's case, and he ended up having to take $3.5 or $4 million because of this video. So it was a very expensive video. And the guy's excuse was, I thought it would only show up in Cuba. I didn't realize it would show up in the United States. So having a watchdog on your client on all aspects, right? Getting arrested, changing addresses. I can't tell you how many times I get calls from clients where I have $100,000 settlement, but I don't know where my client is. Nobody can find them. I get that stuff happening all the time. So, maybe something like a Watchdog product would be a good sales pitch from an investigator to offer their clients to help mitigate those types of problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Rather than sitting there and scratching your head and trying to run a different search every day, every week, again, just throw them on Watchdog and just sit back and we'll tell you when something new pops up.
Right. That's a great product there. Okay, so I think we're going to get ready to wind down things here. So how can folks get a hold of you, Jeff, if they had any questions, they wanted to know more about Delvepoint?
There's our website, delvepoint.com, and we have an online chat available there. Talk with our customer service reps that way, or you can call us, 866-945-1667.
Or email us, customerservice@delvepoint.com.
Yeah, we're going to
more often than not, I'm the one sitting there watching that inbox. So
right.
I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
There you go. And we're going to have all that information up on the show notes. So great. I really appreciate you guys coming on here and giving us an idea of database research and the Delvepoint way of doing things and some of the cool products that you guys offer. I encourage the listeners to at least check out the website if you're not using it. I know we all get comfortable with the different search engines that we use. It's always been my opinion you should have at least 3, but that's just me. You make your own ideas on how to do things. But yeah, I definitely took a look at Delvepoint, and I thought it was worthwhile to make the investment in and check it out. And you guys have been very gracious with your time. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you guys on the next show. Take care, everybody. Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks for checking out this episode. We thank Jeff and Niki for dropping by and giving some great pro tips for searching. Don't forget to use their code PI2020 and give Delvepoint a try. A special thank you to Satellite Investigations for continuing to sponsor this show. If you need any investigative work done in New York State, contact them at satellitepi.com. Also, check out the latest issue of PI Magazine for Matt's columns on Podcasting 101 and PI Perspectives. Next week, Matt sits down with attorney investigator Wes Bearden from the Bearden Investigative Agency in Texas and Louisiana. Have a great week, and thanks for tuning in to PI Perspectives.